We're here
and then give us
live. It's the M Squared Podcast with your host,
I'm Dan Ryan.
Mikey Bloomfield.
And Anthony Rapp. What are you doing?
I don't know why I said Mikey, but I'm going with it.
Thank you, Dan.
That was a very hard stop.
Well played, well played. So before this gets any worse, let's get in. Welcome to M Squared. We are here today with our co-host Mikey Bloomfield and Anthony Rappaciullo, and also our guest from nonprofit Staten Island, Tatiana Arguello. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So on M Squared, what we like to do is talk a little bit about building brands, and locally here in our market specifically, where the ideas came from, why are they unique? We know that you just went through and took over as the executive director, is that right?
Mrs. President.
That's correct.
So the executive director of nonprofit Staten Island, and when you came in, you took what was a known brand on the island and turned it upside down. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your story, but before we get into that.
First of all, before we do Rap's rant, can we talk about, Dan, for a second, that we're in a new location today? Can
We are. We're taking M
So maybe
Squared on
that's
the
maybe
road.
that's my rant today. So Rap's rant is the new location and how Mike feels like since we're in his world that he could boss us all around. So we're here on location at the beautiful Techie Geek offices within the South Shore bid in Eltingville. So Mike, thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming.
I appreciate being here. So today's rant, talk a little bit about how your office space reflects your branding and marketing.
So my office space clearly looks like it was designed by a 12-year-old kid. So that would clearly fit in the branding of the IT superheroes. And it's very important with everything that we do. It's the branding. Like even the coasters on the table that I don't know if you could see, but we'll get a cut to. Spider-Man, which you can't see in the corner because we don't have a fourth camera. Next time you come, I'll get that. We do have a life-size Spider-Man, but throughout the whole office, branding is important. If we're going to be the real-life IT superheroes, it's important that we get that feeling throughout the whole office, and my team gets that feeling throughout the office.
Let's get unbiased feedback. So Tatiana, is this your first time in the new office?
This is not my first time in the office. This is my first time upstairs, and I think that it looks wonderful.
Branding, does it reflect the IT superheroes?
Of course.
He's getting good at this.
There we go.
So I think what's interesting about your branding too is that you also incorporate like a work-life balance and you create an environment for your staff that is fun to go to, and it's different and it's unique. You operate in a very boring industry.
What? IT is boring? Who said that?
But you make it fun, and it's cool. It'd be great to come and work here.
So just to be honest, the arcade machines and pinball machines are just there for show. I want you people to come when they believe that I give them a work-life balance, but they're not actually allowed to touch them or use them during work hours. They actually get a demerit. No, that's just. It's funny because if you were to go downstairs and surprise them, sometimes I walk down there and I'm like, if they're off a call, they've done everything they're supposed to. I really don't care what they're doing, and they'll be watching Twitch videos of people playing video games. They actually been their stream decks and who's playing video games down there. But as long as the work gets done, our clients are happy. I want them to enjoy coming to work. You spend more time at work than you do at most of the time at home.
That's true. That's true. I think all of us too that are sitting here, we've had the conversation about how work in this community becomes a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's part of what kind of who we become, right?
For sure.
So that was your.
That was nice.
I like every time she talks. We should
Every
just do
time
the-
she speaks, we'll do it. Not us.
I'm
not
not.
us.
I'm
Tatiana.
I get.
Tatiana.
So Tatiana, Dan alluded to you coming in and turning the SIMFA, Staten Not-for-Profit Association, upside down with a rebrand. And anyone who, especially you rap working with other organizations, know a rebrand is extremely difficult, and I think you pulled it off extremely well, and it was definitely a process. So talk about the process, why the rebrand was that in place already as you were coming on board, and then how did you execute and plan that?
I don't mean to interrupt, but
But he will.
can you tell us about the mission and everything as well before you get into that?
Sure. So I pulled it up because everyone keeps telling me they don't know what nonprofit Staten Island does. So just so you know, nonprofit Staten Island provides resources, support, and advocacy for the borough's nonprofit leaders and organizations to help strengthen our sector and meet the needs of our communities. So pretty broad to really talk about really being able to be there for the different pivots that need to be happening and just like the networking that happens in our community. Obviously on Staten Island, relationships are everything. So being like the chamber for nonprofits is essentially what we do, a place where it's a more niche, where if there's laws that are coming out that impact the nonprofit community, we're the first to put that out there. If there's opportunities for different nonprofits to work together and collaborate, we're also there to make sure that that's happening, even just to share best practices, ideas, things of that. And so I think what makes it special is that all these leaders are coming together. Folks who you typically would think are in competition with each other are coming together to not only share their best practices, share their resources, but also be vulnerable with each other and think about what services are being provided and what gaps there are in our community in terms of needs and how we can strengthen our community and really set the tone for how we serve. So.
How many members do you currently have?
So we have over 150 members. This month alone, we added over 10. So
Congratulations.
thank you. And we actually added Staten Island University Hospital. So
Nice.
I can officially say we go from the biggest to the smallest of the small. So that's.
And how can a nonprofit get involved?
So definitely either by joining us and really seeing all the different events that we have coming up. I think in terms of getting involved, whether that be providing us with opportunities to showcase you, putting yourself on our calendar to make sure that we're highlighting those events, and participating in our workshops, our trainings throughout the year, and just being in community with the different leaders and spreading the word about what we're doing.
Yeah, and she throws some great events. I just went to their mixer at the Staten Museum. And how many non-for-profits showed up to that one? It was
There was a lot. I think it might have been just because it was free.
Just because it was free.
I didn't get an invite, not saying anything.
You're not a nonprofit.
Next time.
But no, it was a great event, and you see so many non-for-profits getting together, being there, having drinks, seeing another beautiful, non-for-profit, the Staten Museum. I haven't been there in years, so walking through and seeing that is great. But it was a really fun time.
But this
Thank
community,
you.
the community's filled. It's rich with nonprofits. I think there's like 8,000 nonprofits on Staten Island for a 500,000 person island. But the reality is like 1,700 of them are actually really active.
Right.
But there's a lot of opportunity there, and support, I think, is important, because a lot of people get into doing nonprofits for a cause that they're passionate about, but they don't know how to run a nonprofit.
Yeah, and it's a lot more difficult than you would think. I hear from business folks all the time, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I'm like, I don't know what kind of money you're trying to, like hide or something, but like there's a lot more that goes into running a nonprofit, having definitely more than just a mission and a board of directors, So I think that it's difficult work and really it is like running a business, so.
And there's definitely a lot of profits out there that say they're non-for-profits, and then when you actually go and pull up the status, they never actually completed they just say, oh, I'm going to be a non-for-profit, do a press release, put a board together, and never actually
File paperwork.
Or file half of them.
or complete the audits that you're what's it, 50,000, or there's a number, a financial number. Once you take in more, you now have to file audit, and you have so many, and that's where you are to educate them and help them to complete the process and understand that there's a way to do this legally.
Right.
You can't just say I'm a non-for-profit.
Right. And I think another point to that is just different points of getting involved and like really understanding what involvement level you want to be at. And folks come to me and call all the time saying, like, I really am passionate about X, Y, and Z, whether it be a disability cause or something like that. And it's, well, we have a whole host of organizations. Like, do you want to perhaps get back to one of them? And it's like, just like being able to provide some of those services to folks who are looking to get involved or volunteer and may, think of things of how to serve in a different way. So it's cool in that respect.
What are some of the things you see the organizations or nonprofits tell you that they're facing that are the biggest difficulties when it comes to not specifically marketing and branding, but given the show marketing and branding, but what are some of the things that they come to you with, like, we wish we had help with this, or we're not sure where to go with that?
I don't think this is specific to the nonprofit community, but definitely hiring is the number one challenge right now. I joke about hearing this so often, like the idea that no one wants to work.
No one wants to work. You know it's true. No one wants to work.
I think people want to work. I think it's really, especially in the nonprofit sector, you're doing amazing work, backbreaking work, and the wages are sometimes not there. And there's this like struggle between what folks ought to be getting paid and, what contracts allow and where the market is really. And so, it could be a city contract, for example, wanting all these different requirements, let's say to have a master's degree, to have all these different years of experience, to be able to provide those services, but then want to pay like $30,000 and it's not livable wages. And I think it really is about thinking about how to have a career in the nonprofit sector, especially as the largest employer of people here on the island, and just supporting that.
I think, we were talking earlier about COVID and talking about COVID and where we're coming out of COVID and things are moving. And I think it's going to help us, obviously, with everything. We spoke about this a few times, pros and cons of anything. I think it will help us ultimately with getting better talent here in Staten Island, because one thing COVID showed people is they don't want to commute. They don't want an hour and a half into the city and work and an hour and a half back and take a ferry. Time is very valuable and precious,
Right.
and we want all the time we get. And we believed everyone was going to allow remote work, and there was a lot of organizations doing that. But you're seeing at a major corporate level, you are seeing that pull back down.
Right.
And they want people back into the offices, and there's pros and cons of everything, but you're seeing a lot of that. What that's going to do is bring a huge amount of talent here on Staten Island who might be willing to take a slight pay cut. You're not going to get them for $30,000, but you might be able to get that person that was making $130,000 in Manhattan that says, you know what, maybe I'll take $110,000 to stay in Staten Island, have a 10-minute commute, and not have to worry about moving in. So you will see a pool of talent open up here.
That's amazing, because we do have such talented, skillful people here on the island, and we should be keeping that talent here to build our community, to pour into our community. I think all of us as leaders really set the tone for what it is that we want to see, what kind of community we want to live in, and I think it's very much our responsibility to set that tone and say, hey, you can live here on the island, make a living wage, and be home for dinner. And we deserve that as Staten Island. We're one of the 5 boroughs, and I think that sometimes that's forgotten. Like, you have to go so far away, and it's like,
perception.
no, yeah, you can build in your own community and get paid to do that.
Manhattan, it's meant the effect of having Manhattan next to us, across the water from us. It draws in many different ways people away, whether it's jobs, healthcare, anything. When that quality job, that quality career, healthcare, all these different things that happen in Staten Island that we see every day, not everybody has that same perception. So it's a responsibility for us as leaders to communicate that.
But it's really, you're marketing that.
Right.
It's another, a business, a non-for-profit. Not only are you marketing to, a nonprofit, you're marketing to your donors, your fundraising. But as a for business, we're marketing as well, just like a non-for-profit, to a talent pool.
Right.
When I put a job rec out there, I am marketing my business on, hey, here's why the perks of working with us. You want to come and get yelled at when you touch your video games during the business day?
You get a Spider-Man statue.
Well, one of the big perks is they get their own superhero character, and they get a superhero card. But
Those are cool.
No, they don't really care about that perk. They like the free coffee, the coffee machine, the candy, the ability that, I understand. In my career, I've worked for some amazing people, and I've worked for some people who are not amazing, and
Not amazing. Just leave it at that.
well, some people that did not understand how to keep people happy and keep and retain staff. And that was when I started my business. I realized I wanted to start my business in a way that people enjoy coming in here. I don't want them to. I want to be their friend. At the same time, I need them to respect me and know, hey, It is a business, but I market that, and that's why I'm able to retain and get good talent. And it's something that we all struggle with, right? If you just put a job description out there and it's just boring, it looks like every other, what sets you apart from the job seeker? Why are they going to come after yours?
Back to the brand, right? Unveiled this gorgeous new logo.
Ta-da.
Very Staten Island
That's where I
centric.
was going.
Very Staten Island centric.
We're selling Staten Island. Is that what we're doing? But like, it really is about putting Staten Island on the map. And so for us, I was really spending the first few months. And so this process happened before me in terms of like the name. So we were known as the Staten Island Non-for-Profit Association. I was coming in, and there was a middle of a transition, lots of different things that were going on. And it was funny because while I was having this interview with them, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be the graphic designer and the executive director and the finance person and the human resource person. But we're used to doing that in the nonprofit sector, putting so many different hats on. And so I definitely had experience with putting our logo on anything that is possible, just to be able to give out some good swag, to keep people remembering what it is that you do, or just like thinking of you. And so I had the opportunity to do that in my previous role and try out a lot of different things, from like OtterBox, like power banks, to water bottles, to just like different things. Is, if you're giving out a pen, for example, it's like, how many pens can you have?
Realtor.
Thank you.
How many pens, how many slinkies,
Right.
how many bags
Right.
are there?
So you mentioned your former life.
Yeah.
So you have an impressive backstory. So can you just give us like a 30-second elevator pitch of pre-nonprofit Staten Island, with dealing with millions of dollars in city contracts and
Yeah.
having hundreds of people under you?
Thank
like in
you.
your
I think
previous
you
job?
did it for me, but I think I think the
to
beautiful
steal
thing was just being in workforce development. And obviously I raised up in the ranks and wore a lot of different hats. I started in the finance, but also working in a few different nonprofits here on the island. But in the last row was like working in finance and working on one program, working on supervising multiple programs in a department, and really having the ability to add in different programming. So if you can get it funded, you can do it. And so it was really wonderful, where I was able to do some civic engagement. I was able to do some human development, even some work with some anti-violence stuff. And it was a lot of research, a lot of time, and getting talent, right? And so for me, I always think of myself as like the ultimate coordinator of being able to get the right people in the room and let them do what they do good. And so I wouldn't take all the credit for that, but it was really just making sure that I had the right people who were educators, who were, the networkers and the smoozers. And for me, what I found really useful was I can connect with certain people, but I also put myself around people that also had different networks than me and can connect to other people. So then when you put that all together,
It works.
Yeah.
It works.
One of the wonderful collaborations I was able to do in my previous role was work with Richmond Hood. And so one thing there was I really wanted to work with organizations and companies and businesses that were Staten Island centric. I thought that was so important. I thought, we're really trying to promote Staten Island. I'm not a Staten Island native, but I really consider,
no. That's
I
it.
know,
That's it. She's out.
I know. I'm trying.
She
I'm
lives
trying.
on Staten Island.
Who was
Yes.
supposed to look that up?
Right. But it's been over 16 years, so I
That
feel like
counts.
I feel like I'm getting there. I'll never be, a Staten Islander according to some people, but in that,
Been here longer than me.
so in that sense, I really felt like Staten Island was the first place I've ever called home. I'm from Park Slope, and coming here is gentrification. Coming here, I felt like, whoa, such a different world, like a world where there's like a community, that sense of like giving back, that sense of purpose. And I thought it was really, really beautiful. And I went to school in the city for, my career and stuff. And everyone would be like, you're from Staten Island.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, it's not that bad, And I felt myself being a little ashamed about that at first. Like, no, I'm a Brooklyn girl at heart. I'm just living here. And eventually, like, working and living on Staten Island, I'm like, this is something I'm going to embrace. Like, this is such a beautiful thing to have the city at your doorstep, but also have the idea of like having a suburban lifestyle, to have some air, to have really wonderful neighbors, to have that small niche community. And I think that's something to be celebrated. We're going to take that brand back. We're known as the borough that is really about community and serving, I think, in my opinion. And so for me, when I was doing some of this, like, branding things in the beginning, I really wanted to work with folks like, you can go on whatever X, Y, and Z website and get something for $1, $2, I know they have, well, I'm not going to plug any of those brands, but you could probably print something that would be on your doorstep the next day, right? But like, if you want businesses to support you and give back to you, you also have the responsibility to pour in and provide them business as well. And so with that, it was Tariq, for example, with Richmond Hood, I was like, okay, it might be a little bit more expensive. And I know the city doesn't love that because they want you to do 3 bids and they want you to pick the cheapest one. And, and it's like, yeah, but then it's just going to be another shirt that it's going to end up like in the garbage or something, or like you want it to be something that someone keeps for a while, that, we want to promote sustainability and stuff. So for me, it was about like, if you want it to be sustainable, you want it to be something that someone's going to cherish, someone's going to use and not collect dust. Because I've had respectfully a lot of things that collects a lot of dust and I'm like, oh, that's cute. Now I've gone to the process of like, no, save that for somebody else. That's my new line. But with that, I want something that's actually cool, that like someone's going to hold on to and like be like, oh my goodness, where'd you get that? Like, and can I have another one? Like, that's how you know it's good. So with the Richmond Hood stuff, like we were co-designing a lot of different things, and it ended up coming in like a perfect timing, because when it ended up coming to this organization, we were in the middle of a rebrand. So we had the name already picked out. The board had voted on that. There was like no going against that, because I thought it was a really cool name first, but also like you have a whole board of executives. So like, if they agreed on something, we're going to keep it and keep it moving. But the logo was like, that was something that when we were looking at it, it was like so many different versions. And I just knew this from my previous experience of doing a few logos for organizations. Like, dude, we need a cool logo. Like, I can't go around with, like something that's whack. I'm going to brand this on everything. Like, and so I want to be able to be proud to wear it and not be like, and so we did a lot of research, and we were looking at different organizations that are similar to ours, that are associations. But really, when I looked at it and I was getting feedback from our members and our community, like, what do we do? Who are we? Like, what do we want to represent? And it kept coming up, like, we want to be this niche group of nonprofits that are at the table that, is about Staten Island. And so for me, I thought, okay, Staten Island. And then you think about the other two, like, organizations that really bring people together. So that's the Chamber, the SIDC, for example. So the Chamber actually had, at that time, went through a rebranding of their own. I thought it was beautiful, like, and they took the bridge. The SIDC has...
They took the bridge.
They took the bridge.
They took the bridge. They just took the bridge. The bridge was gone.
Well, they took one bridge. There's
not,
3 others.
I know, but
Couldn't
like,
have
come
used
on.
the bridge again.
It's iconic. Like, you think Staten Island, you think Verrazano. Like, it's good marketing, And with the SIDC, they have the outline of the island. Beautiful. So I said, okay, what's left?
The dump?
That would have been hard to illustrate.
I think they would have been really upset with that one. Like,
It is the current only holding world record on Staten Island.
Don't say the G word.
That's correct. That is correct.
No, that is a current
That is
world
correct.
record.
not for
That is-
long.
Dan, can you see it from space? I never asked you.
Yes.
You would know that.
Supposedly.
Is that a myth?
I've never been
No,
up there.
that's 100% true.
I thought it was. Is it a myth?
No,
You
I
don't-
believe
You
it's
really
like
don't
that.
know? All right.
It's a real thing.
So,
The Advance said it's true. Look it up.
I'm not a reporter. That doesn't count.
Off the record.
so the ferry was the only thing that I thought, I when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, this is up for grabs. And I thought it really made sense because I feel like as a Staten Islander, we have such a unique view of the city, and I biasly think that we also have like a actually physical look, into the city. And so I think we have the most beautiful view. If you're in the city, you're looking at other buildings or you're looking at Jersey. If you're looking from Staten Island into the city, that's the money shot right there. So I really thought that the ferry was a beautiful analogy for us, and it's free. A lot of the services that nonprofits provide are free for our community, and it's reliable. So there was a lot of connections I was making with the ferry and Lady Liberty, and so that's a unique view. And so one of the things that I thought was special, though, and it was a little bit of an argument of which way is the ferry going, and so I think it's ambiguous enough to see whether it's going into the city or coming from the city. So
It's going to Manhattan.
is it?
Yeah, sure.
I think she wanted
Alright.
to
She
come
wanted
to
it
Staten
the
I'm
other
Island.
just teasing.
We're bringing the best of
Well, no,
I don't know.
does the statue look at Jersey or Manhattan?
The statue looks at Brooklyn and
Manhattan.
So then it's going to Manhattan.
Okay, well, whichever way it's going, it's
It
still an
doesn't
argument.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
It came from Staten Island, and we're
It's the-
pumping lots of money into Manhattan.
And anyone
Right.
who thought they could use the ferry as a logo, you've just taken it off the table like the bridge. So
Thank
it's gone.
you.
And
We're taking
I'm
it.
a
Can't be
big
used.
I'm a big fan of the ferry because when I think of the ferry, I think of Spider-Man rescuing the ferry and Spider-Man Homecoming. So
Of course you do.
of course I do. Hey, I gotta fit the brand.
Makes
I'm
perfect
going to
sense.
tell that to the executive team and say that we did the perfect job because of Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, he helped to rescue the ferry, and Spider-Man Homecoming. That should be the logo reveal.
You can see him right in the logo.
Yeah.
See, Techie Geek could do
at
a
the window.
joint logo reveal with Spider-Man cutting through the ferry.
I think what's important though is everything that she said about the logo and who was it? Brian we had on a couple
Yes.
times, a couple weeks ago rather, and he made the point that there are many organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, and everyone in between, that put no thought into a logo, and yet you had a 2 to 3 minute story about the effort that went in and the meaning and the symbolism of it, and to me that's very important because now hearing what you just said, it means more to me. Like I got it. I understood what it
Awesome.
meant, but hearing why you picked it and what it means in and of itself is interesting. You didn't just put it into a Canva and press a button and hope for something to
No,
come out.
and actually, Richmond Hood, Tariq actually helped me create this from scratch, and so it was, again, like working on relationships. I've had so much projects that we worked on together, so it's like a seamless going back and forth, and I can be really honest with him and say, dude, that does not look like a ferry, And there was so many different versions before this that I really wanted to get it right because it was one of my first projects as executive director, and I report to executive directors. Like my whole board is executive directors, so they're very passionate, smart, and just bosses. So it's really hard to please them. And it was literally all of them said yes, voting, and I didn't pay them
You
off.
knew you had to win.
Yeah.
You knew you had to win.
How big is your board?
We have 19 board members.
So you have 19 executive
Executive
directors,
directors.
alpha dogs,
Yeah. That's it.
who are all in charge.
Yeah.
Good
so,
job.
yeah, they were really pleased, but this was like a lot of different takes to get to this, and we had different versions of it. And, we actually had different designers. This was our third designer coming into it. And for me, again, I really have worn some really respectfully whack logos that I'm like, oh yeah, like this is so cool. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so ugly. We're trying to make fetch happen.
But it makes a difference.
Yeah,
right?
it makes a difference.
And there are
like,
people and organizations who have terrible logos. We're not going to name them. It's fine. But the importance is that I don't think people realize that it is important. It's,
Yeah.
it's the introduction. It's what you see. It's what you take away. It's what you leave with.
And it's an introduction, and then like we spoke about swag. The whole point of swag is longevity. I want people to wear my shirts and use my swag because then your logo is being paraded around town. If you have an ugly logo, what's going to happen? I'm going to get this cup and be like, and throw it out.
Right.
But if it's something fun, they might use that cup. And now if they're at another business meeting with someone goes, oh, that's a really nice cup. Oh, Techie Geek nonprofit Staten Island, right?
Right.
They want to go back and look it up.
Two stories. One is, someone was like, "Oh my goodness, you spend so much money on umbrellas. Like, what was your deal?" And they were golf umbrellas, and they were the color, really bright color. I was like, "This is genius, y'all! Like, you don't realize how like you're gonna see these all over the place. Like, it was a really bright color, yellow, and like it was just when I kept seeing them, I was like, oh, money worth it." Because first of all, you're using it, and it was a really nice quality that it wasn't gonna break away, with a few little gusts of wind and stuff. And then the second one was we did these shirts, and they were really quality shirts. And I remember going back and forth with Tariq from Richmond Hood. I'm like, dude, but the string, it has to be a good string, and the quality, and he's like you're not even a fashion student or something. Calm down. I'm like, no, it has to be good quality. I need to be able to wash it a few times. And it was great because 2 years later, I'm walking down the street and I see a sweater that we gave out over 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I was like, I don't really know how that person got that shirt though, or that sweater.
But the brand was walking around. That's all that matters.
Correct.
So what's next for nonprofit Staten Island?
Yeah, I think we're going to definitely work on having some cool swag. But more importantly, it's about the visibility, and I think that's the important part, because my job, I think, is to really bring attention to the nonprofit sector on Staten Island, make sure that folks understand what services are being provided here, and really just highlighting the work that's being done. Because I know for me, being on the ground for so many years, you're doing one job, in terms of me, I was finding employment, right? And there are so many different other jobs that you end up having to do. You can't get a job if you don't have housing, if you don't have someone to take care of, if you have kids, if you don't have food. So it's being able to be that networker and be okay, that's your job, but here are the other things that people are doing that can supplement your work, and here's how you can partner. And because no one has time to do that, right? Where it's if I'm focusing on my craft and doing my job, and everyone else is doing the same, it's really about coming together as a community, providing those resources, and sharing those ideas, but also sharing the services. Here, you can go here for this, and you can go there for that, and and just celebrating. Because I think coming out of COVID, I think people are tired, and I just want to remind folks that there are some really amazing things that have happened, collaborations, just partnerships, people really being together and supporting each other. And for me, it's about telling those stories. So something like the event that we had at the Staten Island Museum, it was just highlighting the work that's happening. That was a beautiful exhibit of Staten Island artists who were able to exhibit their work. And for me, just putting that spotlight. And it was interesting because a lot of the folks in that room have never been there. And so that's what I want to do, make sure that the visibility is on our nonprofit sector, make sure that when we're talking about solutions, we're talking about addressing our needs, that they are very much at the table, and that folks have access, because we're using, taxpayer dollars for these services. So if we want to make the best of our taxes, right, it's about making sure that, folks are actually doing something with it, that we're not just pissing away money, but that we're really providing and serving each other.
And meeting the mission.
Yeah, meeting the mission. So we have some cool cards here. I have a tablecloth, and
It's not a tablecloth. It's a billboard for a television. A television billboard.
It's a television cover for
Yes.
outdoor.
Outdoor television cover.
and these beautiful pins that that were made. So I mean, for me, it's about supporting our local businesses, and so that is a big one too.
Where can people learn more about you? We haven't touched on that. Where can we find you?
nonprofits.island.org.
How about socials?
So same thing, nonprofits on Island.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You know how many people don't have it that way? And we talk about it every week.
Yeah, there might be some abbreviation, nonprofit SI, but if the handle is too long. But yeah, we got lucky. We have time for more story. There was this on Facebook, is the only one that was kind of I wanted to put the whole name on there, but it was interesting. Someone had taken that domain, the username, the same day I started. And I was like,
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were such a nice person. I'll give it back to you. Now that I've met you, I'll get
Wait,
it.
I'm not even done.
He'll sell it to
You're
you.
gonna-
Don't look up the who is.
Wait, I DM'd them. I was like, hello, excuse
That's
me.
why I'm telling you. I'm sorry. I'll show you the DM.
I was like,
didn't
what are
mean
you
anything by
doing? I was like, this is my organization name. Can you give it back? And they were like, it was a back and forth. So whoever you are, please give us our name back.
It's right here.
I'll give it back to you. I'll give it back to you. I didn't know. In fairness, I didn't know.
Well, listen, thank you. We appreciate you coming out here. Gents, you got any parting comments?
No, the final part, being a part of SNPFA before you took over, and now nonprofit Staten Island, you are definitely doing an excellent job in branding and getting out there. Are you playing me off? But no, it's
Thank
been.
you.
I see it all over. You're out in the community. Yesterday, I know you're speaking to business. Came to our social. You're doing exactly what you need to do and helping the brand and market the business. So
Thank you. I
congratulations.
appreciate that.
I will sell you back your domain. We'll talk about it offline. I'll give you everything you need. But I've actually never had the privilege of formally talking with you. I've seen you at many events, but it was a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. And I'm excited about the fact you said you're going to allow, or in the future, create tiers that for-profit entities can become involved with that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I invite anyone listening or watching to check that out and get involved.
So, Tatiana Arguello, again, thank you for the nonprofit for Staten Island for coming on today. I'm Dan Ryan, and we're M Squared.
That's a wrap.